right. Well, we are recording it, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know Nita's still not here. I assume she's going to show up, but I will call we've posted this as a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen, so I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order at 5:02. In attendance right now is myself and Mike Ergo and Bob Carlson, Selectmen, and I'm sure Nita will be along momentarily. I just want to give a little background on the reason for this discussion, and I encourage anyone to certainly turn your cameras on if you're in a position that you can. We're just going to have really more of a brainstorming on this. Basically, we attended a meeting. When I say we, I mean myself, Christine Dias, our admin finance for the town, Juliet Hodge, our planner, Craig Russell, who's also here, our grant writer, with Congressman Joe Courtney's office, where they had a meeting to talk about this community and infrastructure grants that are available. This was unexpected, and I think just as unexpected, maybe not unexpected, but at a fairly immediate turnaround for the congressman to get the word out about these earmarks, which are something that hasn't been the case over the last 10 or so years, I guess. There haven't really been earmarks, but I guess this is something that's going to be happening with these large packages that have come out. So specifically, there are earmarks potentially available for some projects in towns. And it's not just the municipalities, but it's also the potential for nonprofits, 501c3s as well in the area. Because of the fact that we found out about this on Tuesday, we wanted to get as many people together from the community that we could get the word out to. And certainly we're streaming this on YouTube as well. So anyone who's paying attention, we open this meeting up to the public to be able to hear about this. With the intention of kind of brainstorming at this meeting about potential projects. Now, this is a lightning fast turnaround as far as attempting to try to get something done here. And when I say lightning fast, I mean we would have to submit something next week. So now we could certainly do nothing, but I don't think that that's wise, because this is, I would say, an incredibly unusual circumstance, where how it was described to us was the possibility on some of these community grants is an 80% availability of funds, and some of these could be pretty large. So we have a number of things that we talked about that we could potentially try to submit for. Now we understand that there's obviously a different process in a town. You know, we probably have to go through a town process at some point if we were awarded any sort of grant. But I felt like if we got together as a group and we had some buy-in and decisions from those that are here, it may make sense for us to apply for one or two different things. We have some thoughts that Christine, Juliet, myself, and Craig discussed a little bit. But we also feel like some of you may have ideas too. And you'll also notice Amy's here from the library, and they are also eligible to apply. And I know they have some thoughts about some capital projects that they were talking about, which is potentially an ideal fit as well. But I just wanted to emphasize the fact that we had the meeting on Tuesday. We were made aware of this really, really quick turnaround that's necessary on this. So that's why you had this kind of immediate call for a meeting, on Thursday evening, which was the soonest we could do it after posting it for 24 hours. With the intention of leaving this meeting, if we feel that there's anything that we want to apply for, we would get Craig working on it over the next few days with the intention of submitting something by really midweek next week. So Courtney's office would have an opportunity to vet it before actually submitting it on our behalf. I'll end my comments letting you know that it sounded like the congressman probably has the ability to put forward about 10 or so projects in his area. So it's not like, if we submitted a couple from the town, I think that's fine. So I guess with that, I don't know, Juliet or Christine, if you want to talk about some of the things we discussed, or how do you want to kind of proceed on the discussion, or we want to just open it up? Juliet, what do you think?
I'll just get us started with some of the things that I was thinking of that immediately jumped to mind. Obviously, Jennifer Dayton's idea for the workforce development facility in the former school immediately came to mind, as it falls under a couple of the categories there, and would allow for renovations to occur in that space, and setting up the program. And since you had already done some work on that project, it was seeming like that would be farther along than some of the other ideas. And EDC agreed, or Brett agreed with that idea. That's what he mentioned first and foremost, as well as along with the possibility of, and I'm not sure about this one, but using some of the funds to demo the 1-story portion, keeping the kitchen, and then focusing on the renovations on the 2-story portion for the workforce development facility. And the other thing that immediately came to mind was land acquisition. I know that the land acquisition fund did not, wasn't given all the money that they wanted to for this budget period. I know that's not the right way to say it, but my brain I'm hurting right now. So if there were a parcel that was of interest, and one came up in discussion, I think yesterday or the day before on Billings Road, but if there was a parcel of interest, whether it be for open space, whether it be for a potential housing project, whether it be for economic development, thinking about the potential to have to put in some infrastructure for a water system, for example, that we might think of key parcels for sale in the economic development district, or in the other one that came to mind, and I don't know what the price tag is the one by Holly Green near the senior center. But so those were the ones that came to mind. 119 Clarks Falls Road also came to mind, Marianne, for housing, for whatever needs to be done to that building. And also on the Hewitt farm, if we are trying to, get people to use the property more, or trying to think of alternative uses for the Gallup House, and then we might want to consider doing something with that cabin building, i.e. putting a restroom in there, potentially, like a public restroom, or putting in for renovating the carriage house to become the kayak and ski storage thing that we were talking about at one point. So those were the ones that immediately came to my mind. I'm just trying to think of projects that have been discussed or in the works that we could potentially have matching funds already for. And I wasn't sure, Marianne, what Kinsa had in that respect, but I know we do have some matching funds for the Gallup House for land acquisition. I'm not sure about the business incubator or workforce training, but Jennifer can speak to that. So those are my immediate things that came to mind.
Let me go to Christine for commentary, and then we'll open it up to the group if you have anything to add, Christine.
I support Juliet.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think the key to what you said, Juliet, is it's nice if we have money already for something, because there is going to be, even though it's only a 20% match, it makes it a little easier. But it's not like we couldn't go and ask for the match afterwards. So I'd like to just open it up for general discussion, although let me ask Bob first if you wanted to add anything, Bob, before I open it up to the group, since it is a selectmen's meeting.
And remind me to tell you what the Historic Society, I don't know if they're on here, they had an idea too.
Okay.
No, I've got no comment at this point, Mike. I'm just curious and looking forward to listening to others. Thanks.
Go ahead, Bob, Bill, is that your hand up?
Yeah, I reviewed the 32 pages, reading some of it, scanning most of it. 5 different things came to mind, and I'm afraid I'm looking at a very big picture that, given your time frame, may not be possible. But one that is possible, on page 7, they talked about eligibility for a capital project in the transit area, and a zero emission handicap senior van came to mind. Perhaps that would be something that we would look at. Further on page 16, rural development, rural community facility grant. On page 16, there's public safety measures. I also think on page 15, we've talked about a water tower to feed our hydrants along town center up behind the fire department. You're also considering the relocation of the state police facility. It does mention that in that section on page 15. It also mentions on page 16, public works facility vehicle. And it must serve a rural area. I don't know if we're considered rural or suburban, but
Rural.
rural, okay? So a public works vehicle may be a consideration. And I see in your weekly reports, Mike, that they continue to need weekly overhaul every time there's a snowfall. On page 31, the interior environment, the land acquisition for habitat conservation and encouragement of outdoor recreation. We have a recent request of a piece of property. I haven't looked at it yet, that they would like to sell. It abuts our open space up on Billings Lake, which also abuts state property. So it would secure a large piece of the northern part of Billings Lake wouldn't be outdoor recreation except for hiking, because a lot of it is wetlands and ridges. There's a land and water conservation fund in that section. On page 32, construction of municipal sewerage. My gosh, this is the biggie. This is something that we've been looking at for 25 years. And there's money available for the baseline construction of a water sewerage treatment facility, as well as on the following page, identification of a drinking water treatment plant. And we have talked along the way of trying to develop our own oil reservoir, if you will, of water, and providing ongoing income to the town by having a water distribution plant, particularly since we sit over that large aquifer. So these were the 5 or 6 items that I gleaned from the material just to kick off some thinking.
Thank you, Bill. Go ahead, Jen.
Hi, I'd like to pitch an idea, and there are no hard feelings if we decide not to, or if we go with a different project. I'm just speaking for my passion that I brought to the EDC for a regional information technology training center that would be open to anyone in the region, but particularly to serve underemployed, unemployed, or people needing to retrain after the disaster we've been through with our late economic health. It would be training run by an outside company. They would take 15 students. They would have a remote instructor on a screen, but live for those 15 students. The cost for the training is $17,500 for a single certification in IT. There are 3 certifications that are important in our region that's confirmed by both industry and our community college. And they are A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. Those are the 3 certifications. You can get the certification in a week or a month, depending on how many hours you want to spend per week. The cost for the material is $430 per person. I would expect the students to pick that up. If we run all 3 certifications with all the costs, including the materials, including the classroom instruction, it's going to be $71,850. And if we run it quarterly with all 3 certifications, it's $287,000. In addition, we have an industry partner that's very interested in participating both to put their own people through training, but also to provide a jobs pipeline into the robotics and machine part industry that supplies electric boat. And it's called the Maritime Consortium. They would be interested in also making use of our space in the Education Center for shop rooms. So there would be not only training and certification, but there would be apprenticeship and possibly a jobs pipeline. The consortium asked us to come back to them and tell us what the town, meaning our capability, including grants, would be before they committed to join any such endeavor. But I will tell you, there's nothing in southeastern Connecticut that is a regional information technology training center. It's part of the state's strategic plan for economic development to raise our IT capabilities as a state workforce. There's something in Northwest Connecticut, there's something near New Haven, and those were grant funded by the state. So I wanted to close by saying that the reason for doing this is because our home values are rising, and we need salaries to keep up with the home values. The way to do that is to acquire high-skilled jobs, to attract people to the community who can stay here, raise families, and live here for many, many years. I'll take any questions that you have.
Thank you for that, Jen. I know you've worked hard on this, and this does seem to provide a potential opportunity, a pathway to this vision. Does anyone want to ask Jen questions about it, or do we want? I'd like to just keep pitching ideas for a little bit, if that's all right.
Yes.
Bill, I would like to also just say the thought about the truck, which you talked about a senior, but then you also talked about the highway truck, and we do need a highway vehicle. We removed it from the budget last night. And I think that this could be something that we could apply for the truck that we needed to replace that we took out of capital. Are there other comments of ideas from folks that are on the line that haven't spoken yet?
Particularly the library, because you're a 501c3. And if, you know.
So I'm not quite sure how that would work, whether we would just be applying completely separate from the municipality,
Yeah.
but we'd be counted as one of the North Stonington's projects being put forward.
I believe so.
You'd apply separately, which actually probably isn't a bad thing because, you know, we're kind of separate. However, I would imagine the way they look at this is probably, I mean, you know, if North Stonington is getting money, they probably somehow or another look at the fact that North Stonington is getting money. And I know, Amy, you have a project, like you guys are kind of prepared with information and numbers and plans and all that.
Exactly. Yeah, so we're in a really good place to pitch a project. I think for me, I just would need to understand the municipality's priorities because I don't want to compete with other projects that the town is going for. But I can tell you that if you need projects to be ready in 1 week, we will be ready in 1 week.
That's pretty attractive. You know, when I look at the things that are, I mean, the week turnaround is tough, and I think that's the hardest thing we've got going. If the fact is, Amy, you said you can be done in a week, that's really good to know. I mean, I'm very interested. I think when we look at the things that are the biggest priorities and also challenges for the town, the water sewer initiatives are top of the list. However, we still truly lack enough direction, I think, at this time, to go for anything there, with the exception of, and probably even including, I mean, Juliet and I talked about the fact even to potentially secure a piece of land that in the economic development zone that we could potentially use for, say, for wells. But even with that, I just think we're probably a little too early. So that's number one. And the number two thing is that 298 Norwich Westerly Road, because that has been just such a topic of discussion. and it's a looming liability and asset for the town. And we are working very hard. We're not only working with resources, we're working with committees on trying to come up with a plan for that building. What is the feeling of the group on what Jen presented about this idea? I really would like to hear from everyone about this. Don't be shy. Raise your hand or speak up.
I'll go first. This is Amy. I just had a quick thing, which is I think it's a really fabulous idea. And if we weren't able to go forward with something like that, I would definitely want to talk to Jen about the possibility of the library being the physical spot to at least start that project. If it's a matter of 17 people at a time, I wonder if there's a way that we could at least get that rolling via our physical space if we decide not to go forward with it at 298.
I
We're
have
not limited, however, to just one or two projects, correct?
I think we
No.
are kind of limited, aren't we?
Well, they're probably not going to approve more. We really don't know. We really don't know. I mean, he said I think he's got a pot of money. So it depends on first of all, the size of the amount of projects that come through. He did say that what his recollection was in the past was they really do like to spread the wealth to make many people happy. So, I personally, I guess my personal feeling, and Craig certainly is more the expert on it, but I kind of feel like based on what we heard, we better pick a couple. I don't think we better get into too many. Do you concur with that, Craig? You do, yeah.
But also they said no project too small, so if it was one big one, one smaller one, or even two decent sized ones, and if somebody had something just, I was thinking the stone garage, I'd love to have that cleaned out and the records preserved, something like that maybe we throw it in, but.
Bob, I'm sorry. Bob, you had your hand up before?
Yeah, so a question for Jen. Jen, with your thoughts, how much of the building would be used?
Because it would be open to regional participation, I can't tell you right now, having not tried to recruit people from surrounding towns. I just don't have any idea how many rooms would be needed. But if we have multiple rooms, we would need to replicate these costs in each room because there would be a remote instructor on screen for each room.
And so here's what, and I like the idea of anything we do at 298, obviously, but my fear is that if we take a small portion of it, it's going to limit us as far as getting someone in there to take a larger portion. Unless down the road we can get a two-story leasee in there for the two-story wing, ain't all the way down to the central office, and use some of the one-story for your idea, Jen, which rather than demolish it, if we have use for it, I'd rather use it. I like the thinking that Amy had is in incorporating the library. Since it's a building that's already there, the library is typically looking for projects like this. We already have a space, so if we wanted to start small and then if it grows into a bigger space, we could use the 298. But I would hate to have a portion of that building used and then that prohibits us from getting a larger portion used because we're using some of it already for one or two classrooms. So if we could turn that whole two-story wing into something that's workforce development, it'd be fantastic. It'd be a kind of a version of what we have in the Wesley Education Center. If we could pull that into town, something like that would be fantastic. But I just don't want to kind of hurt ourselves by taking a small portion of the building, and then that keeps us from getting a larger portion. When Amy's got the library, it might be worthwhile to work out with something with her on that. That's just my thought.
We still have the unit at Holly Green.
No, we sold that.
Okay, the sign is still up on the play card out front. I was just wondering.
Oh, it is? Wow. Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
I have one more grant suggestion for you, and it may be a sore subject, but I keep thinking about the roof, and under the section economic development, they would allow a capital project such as a roof. I don't know if you saw that in the document. This is separate from the workforce development section under labor. This one's under economic development. So depending on what wing and what portion of the roof is in high need of immediate repair, that could be considered as well.
I think that's a good thing to talk about. I think when we look at the town, that is one of the heavier weighted items that we have here. More discussion on the idea of the 298 building. Any other comments from anyone who heard Jen's? I feel as if we have enough information, this is all really just brainstorming, okay? So I'm just kind of spitballing here. If we have enough information on this workforce development initiative, which Jen, you have a lot of information, which could go into a grant application. It's not an all-encompassing thing that they're looking for. It's basically a Google document. I think we could try to apply to get the roofs fixed with the intention of using the building for workforce development. I also think we could apply to demo the middle school if that were a direction that we wanted to go in. I think we should really be thinking about that building as one of the projects because it's such an important part of what we're doing. The only other thing that seems as important to me, because I'm looking a little bit bigger here. This is big money that's available, right? So yeah, so we assume like the roof might be $1 million project to get both. I don't know, to get all the roofs done. It probably is because it costs us $500,000 to get the roof over the middle school portion. I mean the central office done. I mean, if we could get the roofs done and only have to pay $200,000, that's kind of a no-brainer. And also, we also have we have numbers on the demo. It was, we know that it was going to cost us $900,000 or something like that. So we could go in with the possibility of demoing. I don't know if demo is as attractive to get approved from a grant perspective as a workforce development initiative. I feel like we're going to have a better chance utilizing the building. The only thing that's as attractive to me, and because I'm looking at it from a big money perspective, is the possibility of acquiring land in the economic development zone for the potential later of water or sewer infrastructure. There is land available. We do have money in our land acquisition fund, which could act as a match. I think we all recognize that water is the oil of North Stonington. And we have not been in a position we have not moved forward in a position to try to move something forward there. Those are the two items that seem like the biggest opportunity. If I'm talking through it and hearing what you're all saying, if I'm looking at the things that make sense to me, those are the two. But I think we should consider one of them. And I think we should probably step aside from submitting another and allow the library, because I don't think they're going to want to see three big things from the North Stonington area, but I do think, one being from a nonprofit, one being from the town is a little more feasible. Does anybody have thoughts on those thoughts?
This is Amy. I just had a quick thing, which is what's attractive to me about that is that, I would love to see a sort of a campus feeling. And so that's what it does. It addresses two buildings that are right next to each other. And a lot of the capital work that we want to do is improving the outside and creating a park and a terrace where people can work outside at the library. So if you put those two projects together, I think you do have a really nice project.
Amy, just to clarify, and I don't mean to put you on the spot on this, but when you think about the demo versus the roof, you heard what I said about at least my perspective, and you probably have even more great. And Craig, please chime in on this too. Like from an approval perspective, do you think doing the roofs versus the demo? Craig, what are your thoughts about that?
Repairing and rehabbing something is definitely better than demoing something. A demolition, not a project usually that is happily funded, but if you're doing something to improve something with putting a roof on it, it's definitely better.
Yeah, unless we're demolishing it to put in an additional soccer field or, something having to
Right.
do with recreation or some outdoor program, or if the library needed that space or something, you know.
Amy, do you favor the roof idea and the workforce development approach?
I'm not going to speak to that because I really am, that's not in my area at all. Like I love the idea of part of the building coming down because I just think it's unattractive, but that just is not, that's not at all like a rational reason to do something.
Yeah.
I just love the idea of the workforce development because I feel like that's, there would be some great things we could do in that building, and that's definitely one of them. But
I think if we were to apply for not just the roof, I mean, I would also suggest that we apply for the windows at the same, I mean, if we're going to do this grant, we would want to fix the main things that are wrong with that building are the roofs and the windows. And those are the two things. Bob, am I missing something, or is that what?
Oh, I think that I think you're right on that, Mike, but I don't know if I'd want to put the money into the roof and windows in the one-story wing. I think down the road, looking at a bigger landscape picture of the town and what Amy said, making a campus feel, I think that middle school coming down and having a park-like feel in that area, it might be a combination of fields and maybe just park area. I mean, we do an outside graduation every year on that side of the building. Maybe that could be moved a bit and give the library more parking space, and there'd be more options. So I think the demo pot might be not as easy to sell, but if it was a demo pot followed by a park like scenario, which would be an inviting place for everyone in town to visit. Unlike Hewitt, which is more of a hiking, kayaking trail type of place, this would be more of a gathering place that we could use for town events and things like graduation, and tie the two schools in together. So I'm definitely not opposed to the workforce development. I think that it may be easier to start that on a smaller scale and use the building that we have, the library, and then still have the subcommittee working on leasing out the two-story wing, which is what the subcommittee's charge is right now. So,
could you put the demo in with the roof? Could you put it all in that I don't know, you fixing the roof of the second story of this two-story building and demoing, just throw it all into one project?
I think we should. If we were to do this, I mean, we have enough information, granted not ideal, but we have enough information. We know the demo number. We could look to fix the windows on the rest of the building and the roof on the rest of the building. I could probably get a quote. I mean, I don't think we need probably more than that, at least to submit on doing the roof on the two-story side. And I probably could get a quote on the windows, I guess, in a short time frame, possibly. Bob, maybe you can help with that. You've got connections and that kind of stuff. I think, and we could also, maybe somebody like DJ could put together some sort of landscape design that explains what this would be if we did take down the middle school. So really you do it as a package that probably costs, I don't know, $1.5 million or something. Yeah, maybe $1.5 million. But I mean, that's
I
a
think
great.
you're looking at 2 million.
I agree, Christine.
Maybe 2 million, but if it's 2 million, we got to come up with 200 grand. I mean, that's
400.
400. Sorry, not 10%.
But 400 is a lot less than the price of taking down the one-story wing.
It is.
Good deal. I mean, if that's something that the town feels is imminent, that they are going to do that, or that roof is imminent, you have to do it, then this should just be, like you said, a no-brainer.
So, you have anything to add, Nita?
No.
But Mike, I think submitting the two plans, the library plan and the 298 plan at the same time, it just creates, even though it's two projects, it creates one finished product, which would be nice.
I think they could work together, and we could certainly could talk with Courtney's office and talk with our legislators and pull for this. I mean, obviously he has so many projects and whatever, But if we have information and we're ready, I'm telling you, I was on the call, we were all on the call. I saw maybe 3 municipalities on there. So I'm not saying that there's not others that maybe know about it. Maybe they are going to submit, but I feel like it's a short turnaround time. If we're willing to try, we've got to have a shot. And what a great thing this would, I love where this conversation has gone. I think this really could be cool.
The other positive thing about the whole presenting it together is that if you read, you know, some of the details of this, and if you're on the meeting, you know, you're hitting so many of the main points here. So I think, you know, this is relief after a long pandemic, and they want to focus on, you know, encouraging outdoor recreation and you know, fixing indoor space. And you're talking about workforce development potentially, and this library expanding its space, creating a park for the town to use for outdoor, you know, festivals and graduations, rather than putting us all back into building. You know, you can spin it pretty easily to catch all of the talking points that these all the different pockets of grant money are looking for. You know, you can read between the lines here. You're fixing facilities in order to improve your situation, whether it be adding recreational opportunities, facilitate or rehabbing businesses or buildings, or something to create something new. And so I think you're doing all of that.
All right. So I'm hearing a lot of agreement here on this plan. Is there any, and this is open for those who joined late. Jen talked about this workforce development. We're talking about the idea of the potential demo of the middle school, putting a field there, fixing the roof, fixing the windows on the building, having a workforce development program out of this building. And then it works with the lot.
Space.
What's that?
At least creating the potential space for it. If we don't ask for the whole funding for the project itself, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Creating the space. And then the library also has a capital project, which they haven't spoken about, but I know, you know, they're doing some serious work over there. So the two would work together. If I'm thinking, anyone on the call is welcome. This is an open discussion. If you have anything to add, you can just unmute. If I'm thinking about what needs to be done, Craig, you know, hop in if I'm wrong, but Jen, you've done some research on this. You know, if you could concisely put some stuff together, get it to Craig. Christine, you have the it's probably the officer. Oh, Dan, come on in. Oh, you got a party in the office there. In spring. You were on the phone, right? Okay.
What am I, chopped liver over here?
Yeah, you stay over there. So Christine, you have the demo plan. We have the demo bids, so that's something that we could get to Craig, right?
Yes.
Okay. Juliet, you kind of seemed like you were tying a little bow around this, and I know, Craig, you're hearing what everybody's saying here.
I can work with Craig on that, the finessing.
Okay. Craig, what else are we missing from what this discussion is? Obviously, we need a roof quote, which I can work on getting. Bob, do you think you can get a window? I mean, I don't know if that's, you know, if that's in your wheelhouse of.
Yeah, what I could do, Mike, is I could give you at least a ballpark on how much it is per opening to switch out the window itself and the labor to switch it out. So, yeah, I could at least come up with a rough enough number for this kind of a presentation. So at least we can keep the ball rolling, and then we can get a more finalized number later. But I could get that information to you probably by Monday.
Okay, good.
And the kitchen, where's the kitchen in all of this? The cafeteria over there, is that in the demo part? Because Brett did say something about preserving the kitchen, but demoing the rest.
It's like smack in the middle of the one story.
Oh.
It's like at the pivot point.
Yeah, we're not gonna keep any of that one story on this. We have a demo that demos that entire wing. So
And relocate the solar line.
I mean, if we're going the demo route, we just demo the wing.
Okay.
Yeah.
good.
Craig, I'll send that stuff to you first thing Monday morning when I get back in the office.
Okay. Yeah,
You know,
the sooner
there
I
is-
can get things, the better. The other thing, if we can get, I don't know if we can get letters of support, community support, or if there can be a resolution from this meeting or whatever that, you know, states that you've got community support for the project. I think that
You
would
need
go
that.
a long
Yeah.
way. They ask for that, so.
I think the
I-
Board of Selectmen can do that.
we are actually gonna have a special meeting on Tuesday, so we can draft a resolution, or Craig, if you have something you feel like we should draft specifically in language that you think is appropriate, just get it to us, because we're gonna post a special meeting for Tuesday night, just a few items on that agenda, so we could do it then. I mean, I think the timetable is to try to get this to Courtney's office. It seemed like by next Wednesday was kind of like the deadline.
I can get something to Craig tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow would be helpful if I have the weekend to work on it, because I've got other stuff during the week too, so that would be good.
Dan just came in, so do you have anything you want to add, Dan?
No, I've been following it since the start
I can't hear him.
Oh,
and I think we're developing some great ideas that we can move quickly on in terms of submission. Not only bring impact to our community, but also potentially to the region, which I think is something that they would be looking at.
thank you.
In terms of the money,
Okay. I see Ann Aiken has her hand up, and just feel free to unmute and chime in.
Yeah, so I know we've discussed that our landfill is coming to the end of its useful life. Is there any way to extend the life of it, and can this grant be used for that purpose?
I don't know that there's any way to extend the life of it. So we use it for bulky waste, so it's just a matter of how much waste we can bury. I will say that probably would not get favorability, because I'm on a number of different groups. In fact, we had a meeting today of the Coalition of Sustainable Materials Management, where Commissioner Dykes heads up, and they had about a 2-hour meeting today, which I was in and out of. And they're really focused on trying to come up with better solutions than that. So while it's a good point, Ann, I'm not sure that we'd have grant favorability on that.
They were
All
also
right.
looking for things that could get done within a year, 2 years. And I don't think that's something that necessarily fits that timeline.
Okay, if there is anything that can be done to help the situation in the next year or two that we could come up with, would the grant be useful for that? It's infrastructure, as best as I can tell.
I don't think we're going to solve that in a week, unfortunately. I don't, because I mean, the only thing, if I'm and Donnie's not here and Joe's not here, but from Highway, but I mean, the only thing I can think of is more land to be able to bury more waste, which gosh, I hate the idea of even saying that out loud. So, so I don't know that there's and actually, truthfully, we actually own the land that's right next to the transfer station right now. So, I mean, I suppose worst case scenario, we could move over a little bit more. And, you know, I don't favor any of that. I hope we can come up with more sustainable ways of getting rid of our waste in the coming years. But thank you for the feedback on that.
All right, thank you.
The Historical Society Vilma was over here and she mentioned something about, you know, the Historical Society's desire to have a storage location or to store documents or furniture, maybe, I don't know. You know how they were planning on building a separate barn or building for that, but she put that forward and suggested, you know, asked if there was a room in the school, you know, that could be fixed up and climate controlled for some records keeping, and if that would fall under what was allowed over there, and I really couldn't answer it, so.
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I mean, there's certainly a lot of space there. So I would think it could be something that could be worked out. Be nice to be able to include it as far as opportunity in this. Craig, what else are we forgetting about on the potential for this submission that would be necessary? Oh, the land, the grounds. What
You mentioned talking to DJ about mocking up a drawing.
Ask Vilma to do it. I already have DJ working on something else.
Can you ask Vilma to do it?
I could.
Will she do it?
I have no idea what her schedule is. I mean, I don't know if anybody, who else is,
You mind hanging up? Okay.
I'm
Sorry.
I'm not sure who else to, Amy, if you have any ideas of somebody who might be able to sketch that up, I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, I stepped away. You need somebody to sketch what? What do they need to sketch?
The whatever will go where the demoed middle school is.
You know, sort of that campus feel idea, presenting it some overall
Right.
landscape plan.
And DJ's already taken, right?
Well, you could ask him, but I mean, I'll
Not asking.
be bumped a little bit, that's fine, but
Yeah.
you know, incorporating your project, envisioning what would go in the space where the school building would have been.
So our project is really just extends out the library doors, right? A side door that we would create, and it just goes out, whatever, I don't even know how many feet. So it doesn't incorporate the entire grassy area.
Amy, for frame of reference, I know this is a silly question. Is it basically where the cows go when we have No Stow Fest?
Yes, but beyond and beyond. So in some of our drawings, we have, we have some parking along the road just to expand our parking. But our park-like grounds don't go from this building to that building. Because of course we didn't know about this. So that's something we have to imagine, over the next couple of days. And yeah, I don't know anyone that could sketch that up.
We can ask.
You could provide what you have, at least so they could, rough sketch that in.
Absolutely, absolutely, we do have that.
You want to ask DJ, Juliet, instead, or?
I could, I already asked him to do something.
I'll ask him. I'll call him. I'll ask him. I mean, it's a short turnaround time, but this is really important. So maybe he'll do it. And if he won't do it, at least maybe he'll just tell me he won't do it and tell me somebody else that can. Go ahead, Bob.
And Mike, I think DJ's already thought about this. I know we've even had some off the cuff talks about what that space could look like if the middle school is in there. So he may already have some ideas. And if we can tie that into Amy's drawings or her plan, then it might give that whole campus park-like look. So yeah, he might not be starting from ground zero on this because he might have some ideas already.
Okay.
So Amy, you could get some drawing over to DJ or to Mike?
Yes, we have that ready.
I'll call him as soon as this call's over and see if he's willing to put something together on this condensed time frame. All right, so it sounds like, we've got kind of consensus on this. I would like to hear if anyone is opposed to this idea. And I just want that feedback. The one thing we always want to avoid is working towards something that people aren't behind. It seems like a really great thought. Actually, if there's nobody that's saying they're opposed, I probably would look for a motion from the board, since it's the Board of Selectmen's meeting, just so we get it on the record to pursue this plan of, and I'll frame the motion. We'll to pursue this plan for this community investment grant to look to improve the 298 Norwich Westerly Road roof and windows on the 2-story wing and the central office part, as well as the demolition of the middle school wing and creation of a park type atmosphere in its place. I've made that motion. Do I have a second? Nita seconds it. Is there further discussion on that? The selectmen? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 3-0-0. So I hope we can spread the good word about this. think this is pretty exciting potentially. So
And
We
the
will work-
understanding that the library will submit its own.
yeah, the library should submit on their own, but we'll advocate, and I think we can all advocate for this with our leadership, and I will work diligently to do that. You know, who knows, but at least we'll put our best foot forward on it and see what we can come up with, I guess. Is there any other thoughts about this? Any other discussion that with regards to this topic? Okay. Great. Well, I think this was a good discussion. I'm glad everybody took the time to meet today, and we will work with Craig and we'll get this submitted next week. And Craig we'll reach out. If anybody needs anybody's emails, email me and I'll get a circle going if you don't have Craig's email or whatever. And okay, just reach out to me and I'll coordinate it.
Mike,
All
before
right.
you leave the building, just go turn my computer on so I can send stuff to Craig, please.
Will do.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved, seconded by Bob. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.